Blog Talk Radio.
Hello, everyone. I'm Alan Pockhotter, and you're listening to Call Talk for May 22nd, 2019. Today's topic is Contact Center Associations, Leveraging Information and Networking. If you're listening live, we invite you to be part of the show and ask questions. Here's how you do it. Email me at calltalk@benchmarkportal.com. I want to remind everyone that all of our shows are archived and available to listen to any time of the day at benchmarkportal.com. And now I would like to introduce the host of Call Talk, Bruce Belfiore.
Thank you, Alan, and welcome back to Call Talk, everyone. Well, I get to meet a lot of contact center managers, both at conferences and right in their own centers. And one of the things that always strikes me is what I call the loneliness factor among contact center managers. They're not necessarily lonely as people, but lonely as managers. They really don't have enough opportunities to interact, share, and learn with other managers. And being in the contact center sector, they love communication. So managers in our sector tend to love to compare notes. They love to have their frustrations validated, and they love to also share best practices with others in their industry. And one of the best avenues for doing that is, in fact, industry associations. They can make a huge difference in performance and professional satisfaction for contact center managers, the people who listen to this program. And also, these associations can just be a lot of fun. But many people don't really know how to approach associations, what they can really get from them, or how they can justify the cost to their management. And that's why we wanted to bring on an expert on this topic, Stuart Discount, who is CEO of the largest nonprofit industry association, PACE. So welcome to the show, Stuart.
Thanks, Bruce, for having me. I really appreciate this. I started as a contact center manager a long time ago, so I definitely understand what managers do go through and really how much information they would like to get from a trade association.
Yeah, no, this way it's great to have you on, Stuart, because you've sort of seen it from both sides, and that's really important, I think, for our listeners to understand and hear about. And as our listeners know, Call Talk is strictly non-commercial, so no sales pitches are allowed, and Call Talk has always been, since 2009, in fact, when we started it up, BenchmarkPortal's way of giving back to the call center community by providing great content and really only great content. However, we were preparing for this episode, and Stuart suggested that it would be nice to both discuss the advantages of associational networking in general terms and for him to provide an opportunity to try it out. So this is a heads up to our listeners. Our discussion is going to be about associations in general and not specific to PACE. However, since PACE is a nonprofit community of people, we are going to let Stuart make you a try-it-out offer at the end of the conversation in case that could be of interest and of service to you. So with that heads up to our listeners, let's dive into ways that managers can leverage associations. So Stuart, let's start by giving us some context for discussing contact center associations and their role.
Well, Bruce, contact center associations have really been around for a few decades, and over the years they've had their ups and downs, a lot depending on how the economy has grown or declined. Many of the associations are national, local, regional, or international. Obviously international over the past 10 years, probably the last decade, a lot of them have grown, sprout up in different countries and different regions. Many of the associations are nonprofits, and they consist of members who pay dues and receive benefits over the year. Over the last decade, for-profit enterprises have entered the market as being just really trade shows and charging people pay as you go for programs and attendance at trade shows. And I believe there's a huge distinction between nonprofit associations that provide benefits to their members year-round versus trade shows that really are just there mainly for the show at that time. Not that they're bad. In fact, I think you and I, Bruce, met each other at a trade show, I believe,
Yep.
A couple years ago. And I can only speak to the value of a contact center trade association as we're of a national contact center trade association, because that's where my experience has been for the past 40 years. I hate to say that I've been in this industry for 40 years, but I have.
It's tough when you're only 29 years old, right? How do you do it?
I know it is tough, but I'm going to tell you, for the managers on the phone, this is just a phenomenal industry. Having communication between an agent and a consumer, whether you're successful at that time. It's like you're judged by each individual call, and I just always liked the fact that I don't want to wait to see if I was good. I want to know it then. It's just a great industry. And then each of these trade associations, they have their own mission. They have their own specific member profile and a due structure. How they deliver their value is different. Most associations have meetings and conferences that focus on topics that are reflective of their membership base. Some example would be that local associations are focused more on mid-level operation individuals, where a national association is more inclusive of different individuals within a company that are probably spread over different teams within the company. So that's really good. That's the basis. Yep.
Yeah, no, that's really good context for us. Can you tell us how associations can be important to contact center managers, the kind of people who listen to our show? And we have, managers and supervisors. We have people who are VPs, SVPs, some who are CEOs, director, most levels. But are these just social clubs, or do they really have an impact on the success of the center and of the members, the human members?
Yeah, if a trade associate wants to be successful, they have to be more than a social club. With social media today, there's so much interaction that goes on outside of, in between peers that the trade association has to be really provide value, and the value really should be dispersed within a company, and a significant beneficiary should be the managers of contact centers. Contact center associations should be providing information that specifically addresses management of contact centers. Information on best practices, solutions to common issues, and discussions with peers is a significant reason why a company chooses which association they decide to join. Successful trade associations have to recognize that contact center managers and support staff crave information, as you had said before, that will advance their careers and also at the same time increases their performance, which then helps the company. So courses and certifications that are offered, such as BenchmarkPortal's curriculum, and how they are included in a membership due structure is a great way to distinguish themselves against other associations. It's not the only reason to belong to a contact center trade association, but it is a priority.
Right. So I love that idea of the dispersal of benefit throughout the organization. And when we talk about some of the things we do at BenchmarkPortal, we talk about a radio organization. And when you said that, I sort of had the same feeling that the benefits, the things that the association offers, shouldn't just be sort of the purview of one person who is the designated hitter for that company. But rather, that person should really make sure that the value that an association can bring is brought into the company and dispersed among all the people there. I think that's just a great point. And Stuart, what are some of the other benefits of membership in a contact center association?
Yeah. Well, to follow up on what you had just said, it's hard for associations to have too many constituents within a company. However, the more successful, to me, an association will be is how many people they actually can bring in. When you're trying to renew memberships, for example, if you have one contact within a company that's benefiting or not benefiting from that association, your membership renewal depends upon that. But if you're providing value to the operations team, to the compliance teams, to the the executives, to the CEO, then the ROI gets spread across everybody. So one person might feel that this I didn't get any value out of my trade association, but someone else did. So the more apt to stay active within the association. So companies join trade associations for many reasons. So they train for networking, training and education, certifications, influence to have a voice in regulations that affect their industry where they're not able to do that on their own, so they need a trade association to be their voice. And sometimes hide behind that trade association because they might be within discussion that maybe is not consumer popular, but that's definitely important for the industry and for the companies that belong to that association. It's a great way to exchange ideas, done through many ways, through conference calls, webinars like this, like you're doing radio shows, and there's a lot of ways to do that. It's exchange of ideas, best practices, and you can develop professional relationships wherever you are in the ladder in your company. There's peers all over. This is a rather large industry, and people don't realize how many people are within this industry that might not think they're in the industry, but they really are. So that's some of the benefits.
We get that all the time. People will say, "Well, we're not really a call center," and we look at it. Yeah, no, that is a call center. And even the official statistics indicate that over 3% of the working population in North America, so you're talking about U.S. and Canada, over 3% of the working population work in call centers. So it is a huge industry. There's just a great need for best practices and the kind of networking that you're talking about. And by the way, we looked at stats a number of years ago for the UK and some other countries, and UK was at 3% too at that point. So it's an industry that has a huge impact on companies, on individuals, on customers, on everybody. So having the opportunity to do the kind of outreach that you're talking about is very important.
Yeah, and one of the benefits of some trade associations, where I think that this goes more to the higher level, the CEOs and the executives, is that the contact center industry is highly regulated, and unfortunately a target for more regulation. So companies that want to make sure that people have their backs, or someone has their back when it comes to some of these regulations. Trade associations are those influencers, and so the more members of an association, the more influence that they will have. And in this industry today, I mean, besides all the other regulations that are out there that are, that are really meant to protect the consumer, and they should be, there's still a whole bunch of regulation on the doorstep with data privacy right now that industry needs to have a voice in that, because the agents within a contact center or a call center are going to be the ones who are the first line of defense or offense, however you want to call it, when consumers are wanting their data reviewed, changed, deleted, and at the current pace, there could be 50 of those state laws. So trade associations are important by not only advocating so that there's something reasonable, but there's also trade associations providing information to companies to be able to meet the regulation necessary. So that's another important point that trade associations do provide.
I think that's a key thing, because one of the problems is as the world becomes more bureaucratized and there's more regulation and all that sort of thing, staying on the right side of all the regulations and the law becomes more and more difficult, and in fact, in some cases impossible. And so if, as a call center manager or even as a CEO of a company, director level, et cetera, you can't possibly keep up with all that stuff on your own. So having an association that is doing that as their reason for being, and then is communicating to you what the changes are, the choices are, all of that sort of thing, so that you can stay in compliance, I think is extremely important value that comes out of associations.
Yeah. I don't want to talk too much about PACE in general, but our association, for example, the first couple of days of each month, our members get an alert that says, okay, these are the do not call holidays, for example, which means you can't reach out to consumers on these days. So the compliance people or the management of the centers really don't have to go look for that information. We're providing it to them. And whether it's, I'm sure they have their own processes, but this is a reminder that says, oh, I got to take care of this. So, the association can be very influential within their member companies of making sure they're doing things right and providing them the correct information.
One of the things that I found too is that people, who are basically inbound customer service, don't realize that in some cases, they will be perceived as outbound when they're making, outbound calls for responses or for things that have come up that have to do with their customers, and they have to be aware of those things anyway. Of course, we all know. I think about 85% of the industry is really inbound, 15% outbound, but it's important. For everyone to know what's going on in the industry, because ultimately, you're in the customer contact business, and these regulations can affect you. So.
No, absolutely, and again, the industry has changed immensely over the years. I mean, the call center industry was always, the outbound telemarketing, and then as that industry really, as that sector has really declined over the years for many, many reasons, inbound customer service or even sales is increasing. With people with buying a lot of stuff through the internet, online, that's creating a lot of calls. And so, and it's not just even the call. I mean, it's a contact center, so you could be dealing with email, you can deal with chat, you can be dealing with SMS. So people think that, because the voice is maybe declining a little bit, especially in the outbound space. It's really not overall. And so, regulators and legislators look for areas where they think that the industry is not doing what they should do. So that's why some of these regulations, and again, data privacy is the one, to me, that's going to affect inbound customer service care centers the most, because they're going to have to know what the rules are in each state.
Right. Well, the other thing that I've seen, too, with my own eyes is that the reputable association is one that's taken seriously by the regulators, because without them, the regulators are really operating in a total Wild West in terms of who the counterparty is, right? The association is actually very valued by the contact center manager and contact center based organization, as well as by the government side, because there's somebody to talk to who is intelligent, who has the information, who makes it their business to say, I'm going to be a good guy and I'm going to be on the right side of the regulations. Well, let's just talk about what that means and whether the regulations are reasonable. And I think that's a crucial conversation to have.
Oh, no question. Again, that's why, I had my own contact center company for almost 25 years, and the growth of my company and how I got involved was really through a trade association. And it was important to me that how I ran my business, or the things that were important to running my business, regulators knew about, or legislators knew about. And you can't do that on a one-to-one basis. A company doesn't have the clout unless you're maybe Amazon, but they don't even have that kind of clout. But an industry trade association that has an ample number of members, then they have a lot of employees, and legislators really look to see, okay, these employees are voters, and and they're also consumers as well. So they have to balance that. But I find that, because I do a lot of I visit regulators and legislators in Washington fairly often, and they do value the other side's point of view. Doesn't mean they necessarily agree with you, but I'll tell you, without the conversation and with no voice, I mean, you forget about it.
Right. No, exactly. No, and what you just mentioned is a good point. I don't think there's a congressional district in the United States or a provincial writing in Canada that doesn't have a contact center in it, and therefore a source of employment for from our industry. So there's a lot of interest and clout, as you say. So actually, this would be a great time. We'll give our listeners a bit of time to send in questions, and what we'll do is we'll give that time over to you, Stuart, to describe the offer that you're kindly giving to our listeners. So why don't I turn it over to you for that?
Okay, so PACE is the largest nonprofit contact center trade association, and since Call Talk is non-commercial, I really appreciate Bruce being able to allow me to do this. So I encourage your listeners to go to the PACE website, which is www.paceassociation.org, and on the website you can see all of our what we offer in terms of our programs versus our advocacy, our education. We have a partnership with BenchmarkPortal as well. And so what we're doing is we're offering through July 15th a 20% discount to Call Talk listeners. And to do that, you need to go to the website at www.paceassociation.org. And that will take you and go to Join Us. And when you do that, you can look at the different levels of membership and let's see what benefits. You can always call me, actually, if you want to have a conversation about this. And then use the promo code, and this is case sensitive, capital B, capital M, capital P, small case, join 20. And that will give you your 20% discount through July 15th.
Okay, and that's July 15th, 2019 for those who may be listening to this in 2020 or 21.
Okay.
But that's great. In any event, you can get in touch with Stuart and talk to him about this. But, thank you very much for that opportunity that you're giving to our listeners. We do appreciate that. We do appreciate that, Stuart. Okay. So, very good. I think at this point we can go over to questions. And so, Alan, why don't I give it to you and see what questions we have for Stuart.
Yeah, we have a couple here. We have the first one from Chris, and they say, how do you know if industry trade associations fits your company needs?
The first thing I think you have to do is you have to decide what you're looking for out of a trade association, and sometimes it's actually individual. So if you're a business development person looking to create business, you're going to look at an association that gives you a lot of networking opportunities. If you're a contact center member, if you're a contact center manager, you're looking for something different. So I think the company itself has to decide what they're looking for. And then I would just Google them, check them out. You always ask for references, and talk to the executives of the associations you're considering. And they'll give you the information of what they're actually doing. There's not a whole lot of them that are out there, and some are national, such as PACEs, where we try to be more encompassing than, to say, some of the local ones that are really run by volunteers. So they're limited in what they can do. But do your research.
Yeah. Well, that's great. And actually, one of the things, too, to keep in mind is that people who are in these associations, run them, are people with an affinity for or an origin in the contact center industry. And we're very communicative people, aren't we, Stuart? We like to talk, and we like to communicate and connect. So the fact that you, as CEO of PACE, say, give me a call and talk to me, that's significant.
All right, we have another question here from Doug, and this one is, how does a company get the most out of an association membership?
I've always used the adage that you get the most out of what you put into something. So to me, that's true of a membership in a contact center association. The first thing you need to do is you need to take advantage of what benefits you receive as part of your membership. A lot of companies join, they don't take advantage of what really is being provided to them. We have that problem at Pace, where we offer a ton of benefits, and some of our members just don't take advantage of it. They're not getting the value. So maybe they're joining for different reasons, just maybe for the advocacy that we provide. But the association provides value to many in your company, then the value is increased, and the benefits really should be used. Many associations are using volunteers that help on committees as ambassadors, and I urge people to take part in the volunteerism because that strengthens your brand with other members. I know from my business, when I was very active in a trade association, I got business because people saw that I was active, that I cared about the industry itself, and that that's someone I want to do business with. So there's also some good networking opportunities as well. But it's better to be part of something and put something into it because I think you'll get more out of it.
Okay, I agree with everything that was said there. Do we have some more questions, Alan?
Yeah, we have a couple more. We have one from Will, and this one is, we have a center in the U.S. and one offshore. Can managers in both get info and participate in the association?
If you're talking specifically about PACE, yes. The beauty of our memberships are that up to 1,000 of your employees can actually partake in the association, getting all member content. So when we do a webinar, if you're out of the country or in the country, you can either dial in, or you can. All of our webinars are available on the website a couple days after. All of our training, all of our other stuff is really not germane to where the center is. I mean, call center managers should be using the same practices and the same effort no matter where they're located, especially if they're contacting U.S. consumers. I mean, we're more focused on the U.S. consumer. But the best practices really need to be put into place no matter where the call center is. So absolutely, this is good for both domestic and nearshore and offshore centers.
Okay. And then we have one more. We have one more from Shauna, and this is the last one we have. And I know I would get a lot from membership, but need talk on how to get approved my boss. Any suggestions?
Well, a couple things. One is, we provide, for example, our association, and I'm sure other associations are like this, we provide benefits on our website, and we really detail what they are. And so that's one way. Another way is really, as an executive, as the CEO, I'm always talking to companies. And so while you, as a contact center manager, might have a reason why you want to belong to an association, maybe rather than being just a spokesman or trying to do it, is say, you know what, let me help you talk to the CEO. And I know as a CEO, I'm always willing to do that. I'm sure other trade associations are probably the same thing. We provide a ton of material to help you make that case. And if you're not overpriced, I mean, we believe we're very, very reasonable. So, but always willing to give help to try to convince someone above you that this is something that's worthwhile.
Okay, well, that's great. And Stuart, we're at the end of our time period here, so we're going to have to wrap things up. But this has been great information, both for listeners who are not currently part of an association and who might now think of joining, and for listeners who are already members of an organization but perhaps aren't getting the benefits from that membership that they should. And you did a great job in terms of indicating what they should be getting in terms of benefits. So thank you very much. Do you have any last words before we put things over to Alan to wrap things up?
Just want to thank you for allowing me to participate, and it's a great honor to be on the show. I appreciate it.
Well, it's an honor to have you, and thank you very much. And with that, we'll hand things over to Alan for the wrap-up. Thank you.
Thanks again to Stuart and to Bruce for your insightful discussion on today's show. And for the listeners who did not have their pen in hand when the webpage was mentioned, here it is again. It's www.paceassociation.org. Then you'll click on Join and use the promo code capital BMP, join, and then I can listen. You'll have to list back on that one. Be sure to join us next month for another great show and look at our huge selection of archive shows and topics. I'm Alan Pockhotter from BenchmarkPortal. Keep those headsets steady and your fingers ready. Have a great day.